This is BBC World News America reporting live from Capitol Hill in Washington. I'm Katty Kay. This Sunday, the world will stop to mark the 10th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. But today, some chilling messages from that day were released. The recordings, many of which have not been heard before, paint a dramatic picture of the confusion and horror as events unfolded. My colleague Adam Brooks reports.
September the 11th. At 8:13 in the morning, air traffic controllers lose contact with American Airlines Flight 11, not far from New York. Then, a telephone call from the plane itself. It's Betty Ong, an attendant.
The cockpit's not answering. Somebody's stabbed in business class. And I think there's mates that we can't breathe. I don't know. I think we're getting hijacked.
Shortly afterwards, this.
Nobody move. Everything will be okay. If you try to make any move, you'll injure yourself and the airplane. Just stay quiet.
The voice of Mohammed Atta, now at the plane's controls. Stunned air traffic controllers try to understand what's happening.
We have a problem here. We have a hijacked aircraft headed towards New York, and we need someone to scramble some F-16s or something up there to help us out.
Is this real world or exercise?
No, this is not an exercise, not a test.
The head of National Air Traffic Control was in his first day on the job.
I found myself as standing in the middle of that floor, mostly trying to comprehend what the heck was going on.
As events unfold in the control towers, bafflement and disbelief.
Hey, can you look out your window right now? Yeah. Can you see God about 4,000 feet, about 5 east of the airport right now? Looks like he's...
Yeah, I see him.
That's another situation.
Another one just hit the building.
Wow. Wow, another one just hit it hard. Another one just hit the World Trade.
The whole building just came apart.
At 10:30, orders go out to shoot down hijacked aircraft.
The region commander has declared that we can shoot down aircraft that do not respond to our direction. Copy that?
Copy that, sir.
You read that from the Vice President, right?
But there were none left to shoot down. One tape has not been released from Flight 93, where the passengers fought the hijackers and which crashed in Pennsylvania. To protect the families, we're told, those voices will not be heard. Adam Brooks, BBC News, Washington.
As this weekend's anniversary approaches, the country, and of course especially New York, will be on a heightened sense of alert. The city's police commissioner spoke to the BBC about his concerns that Al-Qaeda could attempt an attack on the day. A massive security operation's being rolled out, and to be prepared. And our security correspondent Gordon Carrera got an inside look.
New York on alert. A city where the fear of attack, especially in the next few days, is high.
We want to prevent another attack from happening here, and we're not afraid to be visible about that.
This is assertive policing, in your face like New York itself. We watch as patrol cars from every precinct gather at Times Square. With a signal, they pull out.
3 times a day, dozens of New York City police cars surge across the city like this to key locations. It's a show of force designed to deter any terrorists thinking of attacking the city.
We've been given rare access to the counter-terrorism work of New York police, on the ground, underground, on the water and in the air. Out on helicopter patrol, the challenges in protecting a city of 8 million are clear.
That's the George Washington Bridge. Very, very famous, very, very critical. It's always a potential target for terrorists.
Beneath us lies the still visible scar of Ground Zero. 10 years ago, another police helicopter witnessed the attacks.
God, it's the whole tower! It's God!
It's led to a fierce determination not to allow terrorists to slip through the net again.
We want people to know that...
At his command centre, with screens showing live surveillance images of the city, New York's police commissioner explains that intelligence from Osama bin Laden's death has heightened concerns for the anniversary.
We're worried specifically about something happening on the anniversary of 9/11 because we saw in some of bin Laden's materials that there was discussion about the 10-year anniversary, 10-year memorial of 9/11.
Approaching the station.
Heavily armed officers carry out spot checks on the subway. Bags are swiped for explosive traces. Anyone seen avoiding a check is followed by an undercover officer. As well as the visible, there is the covert. This surveillance video shows an undercover FBI operation in which a group of men were caught trying to use a surface-to-air missile. But the widespread use of informants has led to accusations of spying on the Muslim community.
They're criminalizing and they're creating a sense of guilt for all Muslims in New York. Instead of building bridges after all the Islamophobia that we've experienced over the last 10 years.
Around Manhattan, boats patrol with heavily armed officers. The authorities deny they're going too far. But 10 years on, they also say they'll do what it takes to keep the city safe. Gordon Carrera, BBC News, New York.
Well, the former US President George W. Bush has been looking back on the events of 9/11, and he's given a rare interview with National Geographic, and he reflected on the impact of that day on his presidency.
You really don't know what it's like to be a wartime president until the moment occurs. I never campaigned on, please elect me, I'll be the kind of wartime chief you'll be proud of. The war came upon us unexpectedly. And at that point in time, you just deal with the issues. And there's a certain gravity, of course, that comes when you start making decisions that involve life. This wasn't one of these moments where you kind of weigh the consequences or think about the politics. You decide. And I made the decisions as best I could in the fog of war. But I was determined to protect the country, and I was determined to find out who did it and go get them.
You're with BBC World News. Let's go back to New York now and have a live shot of the new memorial, which is to be unveiled officially later on today by President Obama. This to the victims, the almost 3,000 victims of the attacks in 9/11. It features 2 reflecting pools, and each is almost an acre in size. You can get lots more on the BBC website. The latest headlines from BBC World News. Cities across the US are on high alert as America prepares to mark the 10th anniversary of September 11th attacks. Security remains high in both New York and Washington amid a credible but unconfirmed bomb threat. The former US President George W. Bush has spoken of his immediate reaction on that day. He said the atrocity dramatically changed the term of his presidency. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he's determined to maintain a 32-year peace accord with Egypt after protesters stormed his country's embassy in Cairo. 3 people were killed in the clashes. The head of Libya's National Transitional Council, Mustafa Abdul Jalil, has told anti-Gaddafi forces in Tripoli that they need to direct all their energies towards liberating remaining Gaddafi strongholds in Libya. And those are the latest headlines from BBC World News.
A prominent Iraqi leader who is opposed to the United States has called on his followers to suspend attacks against American troops. Sheikh cleric Muqtada al-Sadr has said that he wanted to give Americans a chance to pull out of Iraq by the end of this year, as agreed with the Iraqi government. He warned that if they didn't, he said the attacks would resume with greater vigour. Syria's government has banned the use of motorbikes in cities. President Bashar al-Assad's Interior Ministry said it was issuing the ban because protesters had been using motorbikes as a convenient way to move around to perform acts of what it calls anti-state sabotage. Bikes are still permitted to be used in rural areas. At least 2 Afghan civilians have been killed and 77 NATO troops injured in a suicide attack. A truck bomb was detonated outside a military base in a Wardak province, eastern Afghanistan, on Saturday. None of the injuries to the troops are said to be life-threatening. The Taliban have claimed responsibility for that attack. Police in Sweden have arrested 4 people they say were plotting a terrorist attack on the west coast city of Gothenburg. Parts of an art centre were also cordoned off evacuating hundreds who were there for a party. Police say there was a serious threat, but said that there was no need for public concern. The victims of 9/11 have been honoured across America today. Special ceremonies took place at the World Trade Center site in New York, the Pentagon in Washington, and Shanksville, Pennsylvania. And of course, the World Trade Center was the focus for much of that attention. The foundations of the World Trade Center have now been turned into reflective pools. You can see them there, which were unveiled and welcomed to relatives of those killed in the attacks today. The names engraved in plaques that surround those pools. We saw two presidents, President Obama and President George W. Bush, there earlier, and here are more reflections on the day.
Please join in observing our first moment of silence.
God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear.
John Leslie Albert.
Peter Greg Alderman.
Jacqueline Delane Aldridge Frederick.
David D. Alger.
I pray that our Heavenly Father may assuage the anguish of your bereavement and leave you only the cherished memory of the loved and lost.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
America, America.
Gerald Kendall Mark Bingham.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early lights what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming?
After a weekend of ceremonies today, the site where the World Trade Center towers once stood was opened again to the public for the first time since the attacks of 9/11. The Memorial Plaza consists of two reflecting pools ringed by the names of the nearly 3,000 people who died there 10 years ago. But while the US pauses to remember that day, one FBI agent who worked at the heart of America's campaign against Al-Qaeda has told the BBC that he's being prevented from telling the truth about 9/11 and what's happened since. Ali Soufan was present at the CIA site where a top Al-Qaeda suspect was tortured, and he walked out during the interrogation. Now he's challenging official accounts and has spoken to the BBC's security correspondent, Gordon Carrera.
Stepping out of the shadows, appearing for the first time on camera, Ali Soufan, the former FBI agent, with an eyewitness account some people don't want him to tell.
They are trying to stop me and others from telling the world what really happened over there.
He believes huge mistakes were made with devastating consequences. Born in Lebanon, Soufan had emigrated to America as a teenager. He was one of the only Arabic speakers in the FBI and was picked out by his boss to be deployed across the world in pursuit of Al-Qaeda.
This is a break from the facility where bin Laden got his official brief from Khalid Sheikh Mohammed on 9/11.
Soufan's search for answers about 9/11 began the day after the attacks.
I was there.
He was in Yemen, where he'd been investigating Al-Qaeda's bombing the previous year of a US warship, the Cole. He'd been trying to unravel the spider's web of al-Qaeda's network. On September the 12th, a CIA officer passed him an envelope. What was inside shocked Soufan. There were details of 2 of the 9/11 hijackers, which the CIA had failed to pass on.
What makes you so sure it would have made a difference?
We're looking for them overseas. They were here. People in our government knew that they were here. We were not told.
Still makes you angry.
Absolutely. And I will be angry until the day I die about this.
After 9/11, the US began to capture top al-Qaeda suspects, including Abu Zubaydah. He was taken to a secret CIA site where Ali Soufan was allowed to interrogate him.
We were getting actionable intelligence. This actionable intelligence have the possibility of saving lives.
But some in Washington believed Abu Zubaydah knew more. He was about to become the guinea pig for what the CIA called enhanced interrogation techniques.
We're seeing some stuff that if it happens in America, the person will be arrested. Absolutely. It's kind of like an abuse of a prisoner.
He threatened to arrest the CIA contractor who was leading the interrogation. The FBI told him to come home. Zubaydah was then waterboarded 83 times.
The interrogations were used on hardened terrorists after other efforts had failed. They were legal, essential, justified, successful.
Are you saying that Dick Cheney is lying?
I know that Dick Cheney is not saying the truth because I was there. Everything the proponent of enhanced interrogation techniques claim that was obtained because of enhanced interrogation techniques and waterboarding on Abu Zubaydah, we got when we were on the ground over there before even enhanced interrogation techniques existed.
Soufan has a book published today. The CIA demanded heavy cuts. It is, he believes, part of a wider attempt to control the official account of 9/11 and the last 10 years. Gordon Carrera, BBC News.
Now, the mastermind of the 9/11 attacks was Osama bin Laden. 10-year hunt for him ended in May this year when American Special Forces killed him in his compound in the town of Abbottabad in Pakistan. We can go live there now and talk to the BBC's Aleem Maqbool. It was only a couple of months ago, wasn't it? 3-4 months ago that Osama bin Laden was actually killed in a very dramatic operation. Has it made much difference to the rate of attack that ordinary Pakistanis have to endure on almost a daily basis?
No, not really. Unfortunately for Pakistanis, the suicide bombing has continued, and that is really what people here feel is the legacy of 9/11. It has brought about this feeling of insecurity across the country, thousands of civilians having been killed, and they see the fact that their government, their authority, has joined America in this so-called war on terror as being the reason for the suicide bombings. The Pakistani army fighting militants in the northwest of the country, the American drone attacks in the tribal areas, leading militants to fight back with these suicide bombings against civilians a lot of the time in the towns and cities. So there aren't many people who are carrying out memorials here across Pakistan, but when we've asked people about 9/11 and how they feel about it over the last week or so, the overriding feeling we get is that people say that they sat with their families and watched the events of 10 years ago and they felt sympathy for the United States, but that very soon dissipated, and now there really is a feeling of hatred towards America because people here see that what's happened to their country is a direct result to America's policies since 9/11.
Aleem Maqbool in Abbottabad, Pakistan. Thank you for that.